generation from Mexico. Um, and we didn't speak Spanish at home because at that time, this was like 50, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, it was looked down upon, and it was actually, you were punished if you were speaking Spanish in schools. So my mother thought it was a good idea that we really embrace the American, the establishment, and go along with the idea of speaking English at home. So I never really learned Spanish fluently. I do speak a little bit, but not as fluently as I wish I could have. Now, but I was told at a young age that you're not very smart. So this is hearsay knowledge. I experienced another. We have knowledge by experience. When I remember as a young boy, I had there were 11 siblings, and I was number 9, and I remember that I seemed like my younger brother, who's a year and a half younger than I, seemed to be smarter than I, and I thought, boy, he's learning. He's so smart, and I feel so dumb. That is experience. So we get information like this, which is basically erroneous information. I remember reading an article where the article says that article stated, and it stated this. And it was a photograph of a young lady on the blackboard with these very technical and complicated symbols and figures, and it looks like it was the math problems. But the saying is, the headline says, girls are told at a very young age that boys are better in math than girls, and many of the teachers who still teach today, I won't say all of them, but have this attitude. If they're an older teacher, is saying that math is difficult for girls, and so they project this feeling and this energy and these thoughts, and consequently, the girls. There are exceptions, but the girls begin to realize that they're not very good with mathematics. And so that is an example of hearsay knowledge and experience. Now, also, the idea of experience, you're in a car or a bus, and you're sitting, and you've noticed that the telephone poles are coming your way. That's a kind of an optical illusion, but basically we are actually passing these telephone poles, but they look like they're coming our way. This is experience, and it's erroneous information. So you can see hearsay knowledge and experience. There's not a lot of truth in that information, but a lot of us live in this first level of knowledge. And I would say society lives in this level, and this is why we have the problems that we have today. As far as wars, as far as how we select a mate, a partner, what our financial situation, our health situation is based on the first level of knowledge, because we really don't look at what we're doing. We don't examine what we are doing. And so now Spinoza talks about there's another level of knowledge. It's called the second level of knowledge, which is reason. Now, reason helps us see a little bit more. I would say mathematics is a good example of reason. Spinoza said if it wasn't for mathematics, humanity or human nature would have remained in the Dark Ages. Now, science today, we're thinking about going into Mars. Now, science looks, and one of the erroneous thoughts of science, I mean, science is making tremendous progress, but they're always, they're putting out a new telescope out there. I was watching a science channel, and it's beautiful. We have this large television where I live, and the colors and what they're doing out there in space is absolutely incredible. But they have this idea that their whole premise, their whole theory comes from this idea that there was this big bang that created the universe. Well, my question is, what created the Big Bang? The thing that was the bang. What caused the bang? Or what created the item, the thing that banged? You know, so in Spinoza, this is where Spinoza, it was, I would say, I believe he was born in 1632. He died he was 44 years old, so he died of a young man. But he died of some kind of a respiratory disease because he used to be a lens grinder. And but his idea, he was a scientist, Spinoza. I mean, he was a scientist in optics. He loved mathematics, and he also was an artist. And he had many, many friends who wanted his time, but he was devoted also, not only in communicating his ideas, but also he was dedicated to write his ideas, and I'm so thankful that he did. Some people think that he was 300 to 400 years before his time. When he was living, there was his life was threatened more than once, because again, people saw him as a threat to the old ways of thinking. Tradition is an old way of thinking. Hearsay knowledge is an old way to think, and just by experience. So now Spinoza says reason is when the mind begins to see causes of things. You know, if this effect is, if you want this effect, you have to begin to create a cause for this effect. I was thinking about engineers are a good example of taking an imagination or an inventor, like the great bridge in San Francisco. To be able to span that space and create that kind of a bridge, and this is done all over the world. How using space, measurement, calculations, temperature, motion, and rest. And the mind now begins to see how it can apply its thinking to solve problems. I would say reason helps us solve problems in the existential world. Okay, now we are in the world. This is reality. But if we're living in the first and second level of knowledge, we're missing a lot of reality, because the first level of knowledge is very subjective. Remember, the first level of knowledge is hearsay and experience. Now, if you only live in that area, that level of knowledge, you are going to be subjected to all the emotions, unfortunately, and that's where I was experiencing. I was experiencing, and I lived in the first level of knowledge, hearsay and experience. My life was a chaotic, emotional, up and down, emotional upheaval. I had a fear-oriented consciousness. Yet I was able to make a living, have a beautiful wife, have all the material things that I thought would make me happy. But still, internally, I was very dissatisfied. And this is the key. You must be dissatisfied in order to change. And that's why I was thinking that Gurdjieff helped me. I was able to read Gurdjieff because it's much easier than Spinoza. But Gurdjieff gave me an idea of the significance of awakening, of the idea of self-observation, to the idea also of beginning to realize that there are many individuals in us. There are more. I would say Gurdjieff talks about eyes. Now, when I say, when you read *In Search of the Miraculous*, it's going to be written by Ouspensky. Now you can pick up